guess we'll get started. I mean, we're going to start by draining the oil. We're going to take the chain off, take the motor mounts out, exhaust. Carburetor's already off. It's not a worry now. I already have the plastics off and everything, but I guess we'll start. How many threads are on this molt? In the meantime, you might notice these foot pegs are not exactly the factory foot pegs. These actually used to be a bicycle chain that has been welded together to make some pretty badass foot pegs. Despite the fact that the foot peg is broken and just kind of dangles in the breeze. It's got like a half a bolt to hold the damn thing on. Am I on this thing? There we go. Alright. So, like most people, we don't have giant metric socket set. What we do have is a 15/16, and that works pretty good. It's pretty alright. The drain plug is going to look something like that. It's going to be underneath the pool starter. This is an 84 model. I don't know about other years, but they're pretty much all the same. So that's that. This is not even like a fine thread. I think it's just like a giant pipe thread. That's pretty much the end of it. But as that drains, we're going to go over here, get our 1/4-inch ratchet from our fancy stockpile, and an 8mm socket. Deep well or not, maybe extensions would work, but we have a deep well, so that's what we're going to use. And once you break them all loose, and your hands aren't oily like mine, you can get all the bolts out. This is the cover for the front sprocket. This is what actually drives the chain, that drives the axle, that makes your face smile. The bad part is now when you drop bolts, they're going to land right in the oil pan down there with lots of oil and stuff, and you'll never find them until next spring.
Yeah, watch that wire. It goes through the chain cover there.
There is a wire there. I'm not even sure what the hell that does. It goes into this loom here. I guess we'll find out what that does when we get there. Take the little bolts here. We're going to put them on our handy dandy magnetic bolt tray. Find that at your local Harbor Freight. So that's where all the pros shop. And I guess we're just going to let this here because it doesn't seem to want to come out. Oh, oh, whoa. Aha. Careful, there is a little groove that has to ride in. That can mess you up, and if you go to bolt it back on later on, you can pinch it and sever whatever that connects to. I'm assuming that might be a neutral safety switch because it is a green wire. That generally means some type of safety device of some kind. There's a little rubber doohickey on there. If yours is cracked and falling off, a little red RTV might help. And these are already good and loose for some reason. Well, 2 of them are out of the 3. I guess we'll have to dig into our fancy Craftsman socket set you can get at your local Ace Hardware. And this ridiculous ratchet that we found on Amazon or something.
It was $12.
$12. The whole 3/8 socket set with several sockets, metric or SAE. You can find it at your local Ace Hardware for $10. But it doesn't do this fancy swivelly thing that this Amazon ratchet does. These bolts we're not going to put in the magnetic tray. These bolts we're going to lay on the ground. And the reason for that is, when we finally get these sprocket off, we'll pass everything back through the little retaining washer that you'll see in a moment, and thread them back into the socket, or into the sprocket. That way, you'll know exactly where they go, because what they're going back into is a contained unit that's coming off. I don't know if this one's stripped, maybe it's just messed up. This might be an issue. In the meantime, let's get the rest of them out. Uno. I'm not seeing a lot of movement out of this one either. This is not a good sign. I guess we'll have to come back to that. For right now, let's get the chain off. That's where we'll start with the master link and move on to pulling the whole chain off.
Darkness is our friend.
Darkness is our old friend. I guess that's what that whole song was about, wasn't it?
Probably would have been a smart idea to take the tire off first,
Aha.
not lose parts.
Well, actually, it would have been a smarter idea if you have a lot of time on your hands and you're not morons like us. You would go to the back and undo the tension on the chain, because there are two tensioning bolts that will help you.
I might have to do that.
Yeah, I think we can be total magic with this. Unless you want to get a flathead screwdriver and get it behind it, or a wrench or something. Penis, I don't know. Put something in there. Flathead, Phillips, whatever.
Once it starts to go, it goes pretty quick.
I've heard that a lot.
That's how money goes with me.
Once it starts to go, it's gone. Getting angry. Here we go.
This is where anger comes into play.
Oh, it's good. It's good. We did it. We did it. We did it. It's like Dora the Explorer.
Unless you lose parts like we do.
There should be a small, you see now the last link is a lot thinner than the rest of them. There should be a small little tiny roller as per this clip. That isn't what the little roller is, but there is a little roller that makes that last chain link there, the rest, the same diameter as the rest of them. So it rolls smoothly across the sprockets and blah, blah, blah. But we'll probably find that later on, sometime in the spring when the snow melts. Because we all know that's gone forever, like everything you own that's 10 millimeter. That means we can pass the chain off of that sprocket. Throw it on the floor in a fit of rage. Then we're going to take a 10 millimeter. We're going to take this one exhaust bolt that seems to remain in the world and pull it off. They're always all messed up. We had a nice project getting the first one out. It snapped off. They used to be studs with nuts on them, but you don't have to be that way. You can use bolts if you really feel so inclined. Ta-da! It's a bolt.
This is highly customized, so it doesn't fit right.
Ta-da! It's a crack pipe. Alright, now what we have left is motor mounts. There appears to be a vent tube of some kind here that goes to... Okay, somebody already attacked that. There's just a Y that's supposed to go to something and goes to nothing. But what it's supposed to do... Oh, no, there it goes. It fell right off the crankcase. So that's a good example right there. What that's supposed to do is probably one went to the airbox and one went to the ground, One kept the oil filter nice and, or the air filter nice and oiled and moist and collecting all the dust, and one just kind of ventilated the crankcase.
So we're taking it apart.
But motor will be on the bench very soon. For this, you're going to need your 14mm hardware. Sometimes these bolts won't come out because there's a load, of course, of the engine being on them. So what we'll do, this one's a Phillips screw, so that's always nice. Ta-da!
When you take these out, make sure that the long one goes on the right side of the trike and the short one
falls on the floor. Throw them if you don't like them. You don't need them. Throw them.
The short one goes on the left side of the trike. If you put them the wrong way, you'll force the engine over and most likely break stuff on you.
Yeah, I mean, the whole crankcase itself is cast material. It will crack rather than bend.
There's also this long bolt. There's one on the top that has those spacers, and one on the bottom that I'm pretty sure does not have the spacers. That I hope that we're the ones that loosened it beforehand.
That would be helpful. Usually once you break them loose, sometimes you don't need a tool on the other side. Sometimes you can just touch it with your fingers. But for some reason, I can't find it. Ooh, that's my finger. Getting frisky. I don't know where the hell that is.
There it is. We're gonna get ready.
Oh, 2 fists in it. Here we go. Well, here's the Honda 200M engine, pulled from the frame, ripped from its clutches. You might notice a lot of wires hanging off here. This is obviously for the CDI, the constant dick ignition. And over here, I've got the neutral sensor switch, and this is your CDI wiring. We'll get into that later on, but basically these are connectors you're going to be dealing with. It's pretty hard to mix them up because they're all different. We've got a male, female, and this thing which is sided. And these are color-coded, or you can mark them yourself as you take them off. I don't care, you're the one doing it. But what we're going to start with, we're going to start top down, kind of like pretty much anything else. And as you can see, someone has mismatched these screws. Well, one's a bolt like it's supposed to be, one's just a Phillips screw that I guess was laying there and could fit. But as we take this thing apart, I guess we'll find a bin of some kind. Want, put them right in the cover so you know exactly what they go to. But we'll need that bin anyway. Don't freak out. This right here, your CDI unit, this spins. This is the end of the camshaft, and this is your sensor type sending unit that goes to this thing. There's probably a timing mark on here that we're going to have to go by. If not, we'll have to punch mark it ourselves with something. Or we can just leave it the hell alone. Just pull the whole assembly as one piece. But if you do take that out, make sure you mark it, because you can put that in a little bit differently and it'll run a little differently. As far as I know. I'm a points guy myself.
Pretty sure that CDI bolt is a 10 mil.
Oh, I got 10mm for a 1/4 inch. I got 10mm for a 1/4 inch, but that's it.
That'll work fine.
That's 3/8 there, chump up. Now we're turning the engine over at the same time. What we can do is either strike it lucky, or have somebody hold the sprocket. Of course, it's got to be in gear for that. This right here comes off like so. I heard something drop in there. So always be careful with that. I have to thread that bolt back in there so I know exactly where it came out of. Probably if you get a bolt that's 2 threads too long, it'll really mess you up somehow. That just seems to be how things go. Appears to be an item that needs to clip in behind. There's this groove here. I would imagine it probably goes behind there. So maybe upon reassembly we'll drive that in with a screwdriver or something. This, I don't want it to come off. Like a hole in the pole. Here's the spring-loaded assembly. Behind here.
That's the CDI off.
Or I think CDI. Because obviously what we're going to have to do first before we can pull the cylinder head is take the timing chain. In the meantime, I guess we can work on the timing chain tensioner. Get the tension released from that. This is already perfect. You work on that, I'm going to get a 10mm wrench.
Nope, it's not going to work.
Phillips. Well, what do you use that for then?
I don't know. They're pretty gummed up. Bigger is better. Especially if it's magnetic.
Keep in mind. Of course, we have the video to look back on and see where it was timed at. But if you're going to do this without the video, you can probably take like a little punch. Make a mark here, make a mark out here, and just make sure everything lines back up and you go to put back together.
That line is your timing mark.
God damn, you're good! Yeah, what does it relate to on here?
There's a mark right here on the top of the valve cover.
Look at this guy. It's like me with fucking Yamaha. This guy's a goddamn encyclopedia of shit. We're bound up on that spring-loaded assembly.
Yeah, we're going to have to take that bolt. This bolt.
Well, this obviously has to come out of here. That's your actual timing advancement, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Don't know everything.
Come on, Encyclopedia Brown.
I remember when we got this off before. Last time we did this.
With a hammer!
I think we took the head off first. The valve head. Little valve cover.
Yeah, we probably did that. I mean, this is already disconnected from that. I believe this is a separate unit. As it goes, it's like an actual curved cut. Like this seam matches this whole seam.
Don't do what we do. Just wait till we get it right.
Do as we say, not as we do.
Wait till we get it right.
And then say, oh, well, I'm not going to do that because they already really messed everything up on that. So. But obviously these bolts are kind of a pain in the ass. You can strip them out very easily because nobody has the right size Allens ever. So what you can do is replace them with something better, like an actual bolt. It's pretty common regardless of brand. I know my Yamaha is probably the same way. Oops. There we go. All you can see is like our wrists.
Great filming.
Oh yeah.
Check over before you film.
It's like a horrible puppet show. So I can find my 12mm socket, handy dandy.
done.
Are you sure? Are you sure about that?
There's nothing to get lovely down there. You bitch.
Ta-da! And in here you'll see you've got your camshaft, which pushes lobes and blah blah blah, operates these things. As seen here, you've got actual rockers. They're pretty easy to access. You can make little, shadow puppet shows if you wanted to. But basically, the gist of it, if you've never done something like this, is that your crankshaft is on the other end of this chain, which spins this. So as the engine turns, it operates the valves and feeds itself. Like a fat chick, it just keeps feeding itself.
We're gonna have to get the whole thing off. I think that's how we did last time. Instead of screwing it up.
But that's your timing chain still going to be attached to the crank as you pull it out, so you'll never get the cam to come out.
I think we had to loosen it.
If you loosen it, we can jump it off the teeth and go right down the cam.
Exactly. I think that's how we did it.
Alright. Need a 10mm wrench, don't you?
Yeah. Cam chain tensioner will be right under your CDI. It's just a 10mm bolt.
Yeah, there's going to be a lock bolt over here that holds it from
Okay, take this bolt out.
and then throw it on the floor. We do not need that. Actually, we really need that. Don't do that.
Pull out your timing adjustment.
And this whole damn thing comes off in your hand. Keep that carefully together as an assembly.
You got two 10mm bolts on your timing gear. They come right out.
And the whole gear comes right off. You can slip the cam right out.
Now, if you're only doing a head gasket kit, you'd want to put something through here to keep your chain from falling, because it's going to fall into your crankcase, and you're not going to get that back out.
No, you got to pull the whole head, the whole cylinder and everything.
But we're doing a whole gasket kit, so you don't have to worry about it falling in there.
And it doesn't fall in, so. It will if you do it and you don't need it to, but we don't care if it does, so it won't. That's the way things work. Also, there's a dowel on the bottom of this bearing. It does not spin on the outside. Some of them do, some of them don't, but this one does not. In this particular application, I've seen them in both ways.
It sits in this hole right back here.
So when it's actually in there, it sits in there comfortably, like so, and it won't spin. When this camshaft is in there, it whizzes right around. Maybe, if you feel so inclined to get yourself some engine assembly lube, so I'll put this back together to show you how to do that. It's kind of like a big tube of whale jizz, and we're just going to pre-lubricate that because it's going to be dry when we put it back together. That way, when you first start it up, it isn't dry until it gets oil on it naturally. I mean, they actually make a special thing for that, so might as well use it. It's not that expensive.
That is your tensioning bolt for your timing chain. You go in this hole right here. Now we should be set to take off the head or the top of the jug.
Yeah, the actual cylinder head itself, we're going to go down to a bare piston.
It's going to come off in two pieces if you don't count the valve cover. It pulls right off like so.
So these initial nuts we took off the top of the valve cover are actually also
cylinder head studs. This is the actual head gasket. In case you're looking at it on eBay, not sure what you're looking at. As you can see, it's just like one in a car, but way smaller. It's actually kind of metallic. You can actually kind of bend it and it'll stay its shape. Don't do that with your new one, unless you're an idiot. You're going to see there's a nice metal ring here, because it's a nice high heat application. I mean, in case you're wondering how much 200 cc's really is, that's how big the piston is. There's nothing there. I mean, really, I want to bind up the timing chain. There's no spark plug in it or, cylinder head, so I guess we can pull it. I guess we can. But anyway, as you can see by the size of the bore and the head gasket I was holding, it's not that big of a piston, really. Not that big of a bore.
Hold the chain.
And the whole cylinder is held on by the power of super glue and some kind of superhero, probably. If you're prying on it and you happen to break off one of these cooling fins, a little chunk of it, it's just going to be ugly. There's not going to be any kind of serious repercussions later on.
Now when you take this off and you're putting it back together, this right here will sit in this little groove that is made for it. Make sure that's back or you'll blow up your engine. Whenever you take off the main jug itself, you want to check your cylinder walls, make sure they're not marred up or destroyed.
Yeah, any kind of vertical scoring. I mean, you'll see, probably if it's in really good shape, you might see some actual cross hatching. It'll look like a plaid shirt almost. But they do make what's called a cylinder hone, fits in your drill, and it'll dress it all up. I don't know if you can see it with the camera, but that right there is kind of what a good cross hatching looks like. You see there's angles going this way, there's angles going that way. It's all nicely drawn in. It looks like almost like a perfect stainless countertop. This is in really decent shape. I'm pretty happy with it. And we're probably not even going to hone it. We might just for example, but it doesn't really need it.
It's an 84, so you're going to see some marring because it's old. You can get new ones, but you're looking around a couple $100 for one, and if it's in decent shape, you could use it.
Yeah, I mean, you could always take it to your local machine shop and have them bore it out and get a slightly larger piston, and now you have fresh skin on either side. Good to go.
Make sure your rings aren't all destroyed or chipped.
The other thing we can do too, if you have a problem with the rings, right on the top of the piston somewhere. I mean, obviously, we have a lot of black stuff on here now, but carburetor cleaner, maybe acetone, paint stripper, whatever. Once you have the piston out, clean the top of it, and you'll see it's stamped on it. It'll be like 0.10 or 0.020. It'll be bored over 10, 20, 30, 40, maybe even 50 thousandths, depending on your application. If it's not even this bike, I don't think you can bore that much over on this particular cylinder. But that's how much has already been bored. Someone else had it apart. Someone else rebuilt it with a larger piston. I mean, some people bore over, like you'll hear about V8s and stuff. You'll bore them way over for way more power, and it's not really what this is about because it's such a small displacement to begin with. Also, if you have some kind of way you could hold this thing down while you go to take it apart, that would be great. But we're too stupid to do that kind of stuff, so we just kind of wing it and have somebody else kind of try to hang on to it every time I crank on a bolt. Underneath this tiny rubber yarmulke is going to be a bolt with a lock washer or lock nut on it. And that is
Your tensioner for your shifting.
There's actually two different clutches. There's a primary clutch and a secondary clutch. You might have noticed that as you're driving, if you hold the shifter down or up, you'll be, in essence, between gears. And if you give it a shot of throttle in between there, it's going to rev up and not go anywhere. And that's because there's a secondary clutch to keep the gears from grinding. There's a primary clutch for when you're at a dead stop in gear, it won't just lurch forward like a stick shift car.
Get you guys in focus so you see everything that's happening.
might have noticed these are two different lengths. These, well, almost. They're just barely two different lengths, these bolts here that came out of the starter mounting bracket onto the clutch cover here. Basically, it's probably very important that they're different lengths, but they're not even that off. I mean, honestly, probably off by about a whole 5/16 of an inch. So later on, I'm going to finger thread these back in here for now, but later on, we're going to mark them all. Or we'll do a cardboard template. Basically just take an old cardboard box and punch some freaking holes in it and put the bolts in the arrangement they go here. What I'll do is I'll put this on here backwards, out of the way, and later on they'll already be there when we need it. Unless you work in a very organized shop in a professional environment, you're going to have a hell of a time finding all the bolts. Well, of course we've gotten all these bolts basically broken loose now. And got one at that length. Got one that's the same length. It's definitely the same length. This one over here that my fat Polish fingers won't reach. Get your hand in the socket and drop it and then pick it back up. All these bolts seem to be the same exact length. Really, you can mix these up and it won't really matter. There's only two bolts up here, which are, in fact, the same length to one another. This thing, in order to get this off, chalk the piston up with some chunks of wood on the left, on the left and right. So you'll take the little skirts off. As you'll notice, they're longer on the front and back. And just carefully break it loose.
This should just pull out. Have kind of like a little keyway, a little notch, I guess you could call it. It goes into your actual crankshaft. It sits in there perfectly, so you can't put it in wrong.
Yeah, you can put it in 180, it won't really matter.
Then, what you're gonna do, break it loose. If she wants to come or not.
Why didn't you ask her? Now's the time when you second guess, when you take a pass around, and you find out that you're a moron and you already missed a single bolt right here. But that's what we do. Instead of just smashing it as hard as you can and breaking the whole side of the case off and going, oh, well, it's junk anyway, and junking it, and being an idiot, you might as well take your time with it, because an extra 8 seconds that it took me to find that bolt saved a whole bunch of shit trying to track down another one of these cases. These cases are only like, what, cast aluminum? Snap like a twig. But that's what happens when you get in a hurry, though. You start missing stuff. All right.
Now she should break loose.
I heard something fall in there, I think. It's a good thing or a bad thing. Alright, on the back of here, you're going to have all of your pickup coils for your stator. Probably going to end up with, probably one's going to go to lighting, one for all of your, ignition and stuff. And in here you've got a few bearing seats, as seen here and here. And here is a shim. This is very important. that this stays with it. This is with front more of the tooth. Right here, you can see a little bit of a wear mark from it. So make sure that stays with it. There's one that goes with that one. Because if you lose those, you're going to have a problem. But basically, all that happens is this is constantly magnetic. As you can see, this is stuck to it now. But as that passes around these coils, it just creates an electric current that gets magnified by the coil or runs the lights, or I don't know, put it on your nipples or something like jumper cables and have a good time. These just come right off. You keep these in a specific order. You see there's a snap ring on this one. It keeps from fading back and forth. It just keeps it pinned between the snap ring and this bearing seat on here. Put that right next to it in its original order, and you can see these are going to go together. And then, when we get that off, pull the starter out, we're going to need snap ring pliers. Snap ring on the outside, and this, I can see it wiggling back and forth, it just slides right off, and the starter should just push right out. Should. It won't, but it should. Make sure when you're taking that out, it flies off the snap ring pliers and hits you in the eye. That is the best thing ever.
Keep everything together so you don't lose it. Wiggle it loose, should come out.
Alright, well, of course I can see there is a shim here. It goes on the back of this mid gear, which is of course this one. That's why we left them in the perfect order they came out in. Put that right underneath. And just so you remember what order they came off in. There's a gasket here. I'm going to peel that off later, but I'll rip the piece off now just because I feel like it. I guess the next thing I'm going to have to do is pull this, what do you call it here, this magneto. It looks as though it's threaded on the inside, of course where that bolt went in. But these threads appear to be much larger. This passes through and actually holds that pawl cage on. This is the keyway that pawl cage sits into. It appears as though we're going to need, it's probably a left-handed thread. I think I have that tool at home. I'm going to have to bring it over. But pretty much that's the way we're going to end up pulling it.
Take the front sprocket off when we got the chance. Ours happened to be, two of the bolts were stripped. We had to hook up a drill to it. Did that off camera so we don't look like fools. And
Fools!
just cranked it and put a screwdriver on the back and pushed them. And once they caught, they came out, except for the one. The one fully stripped itself out. But
The bolt is what's stripped, not the threads in the sprocket.
luckily the sprocket is in pretty good condition. It's a little dirty, but
It's a little worn, but it's worth keeping because it's an external part and you can change it later.
yeah. But one of the threads are screwed up, but we'll just chase it with a tap, so we got that out. 'Cause that's going to have to come out to take that part of the crankcase off. But other than that, we're about as far as we can get right now until we get that tool. So, we'll end the video here, and when we get the tool, we will continue this.